Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 8 of Relab Live. Hopefully you've been enjoying what you're seeing so far in terms of the content that we bring forward to you. On this episode, I wanted to talk about how to charge for website design. So the reason why I wanted to do this is because I do get a lot of questions around how we quote on our projects, and also sometimes with new potential customers or potential leads, they'll ask, how much does a website cost? Which is a very, very broad question, and it's difficult to answer just like that because there's so much that's involved in it. So one of the things here that we try to do really, really well in Relab and that we're learning over time is scoping, the process of scoping for a project. Essentially what needs to happen before we talk about the money side of things or how much the dollar value is really what's involved in that project itself, whether it's resources, what type of expectation is needed, and there's so many other detailed stuff that I won't go into too much detail because it's going to bore you. But essentially we need to know what the actual specifications is and what the whole objective is for the project. So our process generally starts from just a conversation with our customer. So it's normally between myself and maybe some of the team members here with our customers, just trying to understand what is success like to them, whether on their product. So it may be a website, maybe something else, but let's just talk about a website as an example here. So throughout that process, it's really just us trying to analyze the needs of the customer. The process of analyzing it, there's so many different ways. And again, depending on how much effort or how much time is needed to go through that process, then the price range could be different. I know there are a lot of website designers who would do a website, say, for, $5,000 Australian dollars, but the type of process that's involved in that might be very different because they might have just gone into a website like ThemeForest and purchased a template out of it and build from there and build a design that's already done and presents it to the client, and then from there maybe do like rounds and rounds of revisions. So that's a very common thing to happen, particularly with freelancers as well maybe. In an agency environment, typically there will be a more structured type of process where when we're quoting, as an example, we'll go through the categories of work that we would do or potentially do, and then from there identify whether that sits within the budget or not. And talking about budget is sometimes depending on who you're dealing with, but talking about the budget can be quite complicated because it's not as open, and sometimes it's very often for people to come to you without a certain budget in mind. It's like, tell us how much you think it is and then we'll see how we go, but oftentimes the numbers are not the right one that they wanted to see. I'm sure most of you can relate to this, but to try and avoid all of that, generally we'll have some sort of an idea of, or try to get out of the customers an idea of how big their businesses are, or the business that the way they're representing are. From there, we estimate some sort of a value-based pricing for the project itself. So say if the company is a $20 million company, then how do they operate and how big of an asset is the website that we're about to produce for them? And from there, then we get a range, a dollar value range that's going to give us an idea of how much the budget should be for this particular project or product. From there, then we'll try and break it down further into the different tasks that's involved. So generally for a website design, you'll have things like analysis or research. There's the creative part of it, which may involve UX design, user experience design. And then there's the UI design or visual design bit, and then there's a whole process of quality assurance, visual quality assurance, and all that sort of stuff or things of that nature. And then there's the development bit, which is, functionality, behavior, backend, and then there's the front end side of things, HTML, CSS, things that you see on a screen. There's content as well, whether it's copywriting, images, photography, whatever it is. And oftentimes people would come to you without an idea of content at all. So that's part of our job, is to remind the customers that there's this field of work that needs to happen for the website to be successful. Oftentimes it is content. There's things like data, setting up Google Analytics, SEO friendly websites, then that needs to be embedded as part of our development work. On top of that, any type of other integrations that needs to happen, that needs to be accounted for as well. After all of that, then there's the testing period where user acceptance testing is part of it, but essentially testing for the website pre-deployment before launching it. Launching it itself is another field of work, which is deployment, implementation, verification, testing, and all of that stuff. And then there's post-deployment work. So if we take website as an example, there's quite a complex process. The question would generally go back to the customer. Our questions would generally go back to the customer saying, having known all of this process, then how much effort would you like us to spend in producing this product for you? And oftentimes that becomes more of a discussion type of environment rather than a customer coming to us saying, hey, this is how much money we've got, or us going to them saying, hey, this is how much it will cost. But it's an open conversation that makes everything reasonable for what it needs to be. So in terms of charging a customer for a website, then it will just be depend on how much work is involved and who's doing it and which part of the team is doing it. When we're in an agency type of environment, then that's how things would generally be done. But if you're working with a freelance web developer, if it's a one-person show, then most probably the price can go down a lot because the process might be less involved. And then let's say that person has a skill set that is enough to be able to launch a website. But the process might not be as thorough, the risk management might not be as thorough. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea on how we try and scope our work. And in terms of the price range, oftentimes it's not so much about the price of the dollar value itself, whether it's $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, $300,000. It's not so much about that, but it's about how much work do we put into it. Which means, if it's a $10,000 budget website, then the work that's been put in there to launch the website will be very limited to certain things, which means you're compromising on a lot of things. If it's a $50,000 budget, that means it allows us to do a certain number of things that we couldn't do if it was a $10,000. Same goes to like a $100,000 website. Then it can be quite different. So hopefully that brings you a little bit of an idea of pricing on a website design point of view. Hopefully in the next few episodes I'll be able to talk in detail about how much do we typically charge, and also what is it based on. Hopefully there's a past project somewhere that will allow us to do that, and hopefully that gives you even deeper insight on how we quote or how we estimate our work. Okay? Alright, hopefully that's good, and hopefully you enjoy your day. Alright, cheers.